Hey, how's it going everyone? Today we are going to be talking about a very beloved classic, The Last of Us, which is now nearly 8 years old. And believe it or not, I never actually played this game before. I'd always heard many great things about it, but I didn't own a PlayStation when it originally came out, so I was very excited to play this game for the first time in 2021. And in this video, I'm going to go over my honest thoughts and review of the game, and hopefully be able to give a lot of you a good idea of what to expect from the game, and whether or not you should buy it in 2021. And real quick, before we get this started, if you find yourself enjoying the content, only about 6% of people who watch me are subscribed, so if you want to subscribe, feel free. If not, it's no big deal, and let's get on with the review. Far and away, the best part about this game for me was its story. The opening to the game is one of the most emotional and captivating intros to a game I've probably ever played, and it did a fantastic job of drawing you into this world and its characters, and showing how the world became a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The voice acting and motion capture for this game is absolutely phenomenal. You can really tell that the people who voice these characters put tons of passion and emotion into their dialogue, and it translates so well, especially with incredible facial and body animations of the characters. That just makes the game feel so real and alive. The protagonist Joel is also incredible and is what gives this game a lot of heart. Joel has experienced a lot of tragedy and suffering, and he's had to do a lot of ugly and unspeakable things to survive in this world, and you can see the world has broken him. At times he can be a real jerk, but he's so ruthless and badass and has so many layers to his characters that you scrape off as the story progresses until you finally see his true self by the end. But Joel is not the only great character in this game. In fact, pretty much every character you meet is so complex and layered, and you really have to figure them out because a lot of them just put on what seems like an act. And there are times in this game where you will see humans at their absolute worst and lowest of lows, and that is brought thanks to this harsh world and stern survival at all cost mentality. Ellie is also a great character. This story is very dark and at times can feel very heavy, and Ellie's innocence, curiosity, and youthful energy is really what balances out the tone more times than not. And in a dark story like this, where you wouldn't expect a lot of funny moments, almost all of them come because of Ellie and her sporadic personality. She's really what keeps this story humanized, and she works perfectly with Joel, as at the beginning they seem like polar opposites to each other and really want nothing to do with the other, but as the story progresses and their dynamic and relationship changes, it's really cool and quite honestly a beautiful thing to watch, as they both change and bring out different sides to the other. But aside from Joel and Ellie, there are a lot of different characters you will meet throughout this journey, and each one has their own story, their own background, their own personalities and struggles, and finding out what each one was and how their story ends is really a sight to behold. The Last of Us really knows how to get you to feel connected to these characters who feel like real human beings, and then taking that connection and creating an emotional and shocking response from the player. The story is bold, it's not afraid to take risks, and my jaw was probably on the floor for about 50% of the game because there are so many big twists. The story really does a fantastic job with its pacing as well. It builds suspense and hits you with intense moments at the perfect times, and then slows down and speeds up and slows down over and over, and it did a great job of keeping me immersed and engaged.
You're in here.
The gameplay is a great complement to the story and atmosphere of the game. The melee and hand-to-hand combat is very brutal and very weighted. The sound effects and camera work make every hit and every punch feel devastating, and there's so many brutal finishing moves from Joel that just look so badass. The gunplay also does an excellent job with each shot feeling heavy and impactful. No damage sponges in The Last of Us, and every shot counts and does considerable damage to the enemy, including one-shot headshots and deadly shots from close range with a shotgun. Ammo is so sparse in this game that you really need to make every single shot count, because if you miss and waste your ammo, then you are screwed and are either going to get gunned down by a human or eaten by a zombie. The stealth, while not entirely complex, is still satisfying and very important in this game. You cannot just go running and gunning every time. Stealth is actually encouraged and preferable, especially when you need to save your ammo for the big gunfights. The crafting system encourages you to make use of every little scrap and item you find in the world, and it perfectly exemplifies the scavenger survival style of gameplay the game focuses so heavily on. Medkits and shivs are far and few between, so whenever you can finally craft one, you must know when and how to use it effectively because you can't stack like 50. You'll be lucky just to have one. The variety in zombies is also pretty good. You have your standard runners who are really fast but pretty easy to kill. Then you have probably the most annoying enemy type of all time with the clickers who detect you through sound instead of sight. And man, the amount of times I died to these things. Oh, come on. The clickers even one-shot kill you in melee, and the only way to kill them is a gunshot, which will attract every single one in the area, or a shiv, which you need to make through the crafting tab and are very sparse. Not to mention they break after one kill, so you pretty much just have to use bottle lures to get away from these losers. I think I have PTSD now associated with clickers. There's also the bloater enemy type, who are pretty much massive versions of clickers who have tons of zombie armor and shoot poison projectiles. And yes, it's just as horrifying as it sounds. Leave me alone, man. Bloaters are a little easier to avoid and you don't have to fight them too much, but man, with limited ammo, they are a tough enemy to take down. I played on hard difficulty. I would have played on grounded, but I'll be honest, I'm a coward, and I struggled enough with clickers on hard mode as it is. Not to mention, there's also a lot of human enemies you have to fight in this game. They aren't as varied or unique as the zombies, but they were a nice change of pace and they actually could be pretty challenging at times, which is why stealth is so important. You also have to work with Ellie on a lot of puzzles slash platforming. It kind of reminded me of the Kratos and Atreus dynamic from God of War, which it's not the most exciting thing gameplay wise, but it sure beats clickers. The Last of Us has an incredible atmosphere in its world. The world feels so dark and authentic, and it perfectly conveys what has happened to the world, with abandoned buildings, distant gunshots, screaming zombies, human survivor patrols, and infected running loose everywhere. The atmosphere just feels so dark and grueling. They really nailed the post-apocalyptic feel, and it does a fantastic job of immersing you and drawing you into the world and making it feel as real as possible. I love the choice to have very little ambient music in the background because the pure stillness and silence really builds suspense when you can hear walls creaking, water leaking, and zombies screaming far off in the distance. The way everything sounds just feels so realistic, and I love how they decide to exchange that by not having loud music playing over it. Not to mention the world design and variety is great. You get to go through all 4 seasons in this game as you travel across the country and visit a numerous amount of towns, cities, fields, and forests, each with different environments and atmospheres to them that ensure that you are never looking at the same backdrop for too long. To the quarantine zones of Boston to the snowy mountains of Utah, this game will certainly have you going on a humongous journey across the country where the scenery and atmosphere is constantly impressive. I absolutely loved the winter section of the game. The snowstorms and freezing cold was so cool and really enhanced the harshness of this infected world. And man, for an 8-year-old game, the graphics are absolutely stunning, especially in the snow portion of the game. The cutscenes look great, the gameplay and character designs look great. It's more than suitable for people looking to play in 2021. The remastered version on PS4 allows you to play the game in 1080p 60 FPS or 1880p 60 FPS, so the game still runs and looks amazing. Of course, this is a PlayStation exclusive, which is very unfortunate for those who don't own PlayStation, but for those who do, this is a fantastic exclusive to have. I absolutely loved The Last of Us. The story was easily one of the best video game stories I've probably played. The story is so emotional and captivating. The gameplay is brutal and satisfying. The world and level design is grueling and immersive. And the game's animations, cutscenes, and overall visuals are fantastic, leading me to giving The Last of Us a 5 out of 5 stars. This is the first game I've given a 5 out of 5 since I started this rating system, and The Last of Us is absolutely deserved deserving of that title. If you currently own a PlayStation console and have not played this game yet, then I truly don't know what you're waiting for, because in my opinion, it's a must-play experience and a once-in-a-generation type of game. I'll likely do a 2021 review of The Last of Us 2 soon, so if you want to see that, let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the review, I'd appreciate it if you consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing. And other than that, thanks for watching, and stay stealthy, assassins.